today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about a family without a plan is an opening for resentment, failure, and discouragement. Well, human beings are like snowflakes. We are all unique. Oh, sometimes we look a lot alike. Even within races, within economic groups, within religious groups, there's huge diversity. Everyone is unique. If you want to have a sense of fulfillment and purpose in your life, there needs to be a plan and a structure. Unstructured partnerships just don't stay flexible. They become fragile. They become rigid. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I am your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about the myth of we'll figure it out. We'll go with the flow. And we've been talking in this series about how to have a prosperous partnership where you both feel like you're succeeding personally, individually, as a couple, as leaders of your family, and for some of you, as people who work together in a business, an actual business. In order to have prosperous partnerships, there's a current in the culture that points us towards material goods. And we said in previous episodes, material goods are good, but there's so much more. If you want to have a partnership that's relationally rich, where you feel like you are doing what you were meant to do in your family, as an individual, and at work, whether you're in business together or not, if you want to have that, there's going to need to be some understanding of what it is you want, what it is you need that's going to help create that fulfillment. There needs to be a plan. Now, there's a saying that I'm super fond of, which is, we make our plans and God laughs. All right. There's also another saying, we make our plans, God guides our steps. There are a number of sayings about plans and God or the universe, whatever you call the forces bigger than yourself that we are all working in, with, for, or in some cases against. The point is that as individuals, we don't control what happens on the outside. And a lot of times, because we don't control what happens on the outside, we get this idea that we should go with the flow. And sometimes that works really well for us. I myself, coming out of college, I had a plan for the work that I wanted to do. And because the circumstances of the world had changed, my plan didn't fit. It didn't work. I didn't succeed. And I realized that I wasn't willing to start on the level that I would need to start on to fulfill that plan. I wasn't willing to adjust the plan. And so I threw it out and I did the work that was laid in front of me. And that work prospered. And it turned into a business. I mean, at first, I was making more money than any of the other people that I went to college with, just working for somebody else, because I was making a lot of cash, honestly. And years later, I made that up with the IRS. Because that's how I am. I can't walk around feeling like I got away with it. That's poison for me. But that turned into a business, and that business grew and thrived and prospered. And that was all me just going with the flow, going with what showed up in front of me and applying myself to it as best I could. But there came a point where the lack of structure that I was approaching things with, there came a point where my life, first, the business grew to a point where it needed more structure. It wasn't just me anymore, it was other people. And second of all, I got married and I had kids, and going with the flow just wasn't working there. So Serena writes, my husband and I are smart, driven, and we've built a successful business. Serena, that's just what I was talking about. We keep telling ourselves, if we figure it out as we go, like we have been, it'll just keep prospering. But lately, it feels like we're arguing more and more and trusting each other less and less. How can two competent, intelligent people struggle through so much when we're supposedly in a partnership? That Serena's in a partnership with her husband, she's in a partnership with him at work and at home, which is double indemnity. So like me, Serena and her husband hit a point where going with the flow just wasn't going to work. And here's why. I want you to think of yourself as a snowflake. Snowflakes all look the same from a distance, pretty much. But up close, each one is unique. There are, as far as we can tell, there have never been two snowflakes that are exactly alike. Well, human beings are like snowflakes. We are all unique. Oh, sometimes we look a lot alike. Racism is all about they look a lot alike and they're not our people. Our people are like this. But the truth is, even within races, within economic groups, within religious groups, there's huge diversity. Everyone is unique. Each one of us has a unique structure, and therefore, if we're going to be 100% fulfilled, challenged, and growing in every area of potentiality that excites us, we have a unique purpose. No two people will do the same job exactly the same way. Some people will be a better fit for that job than others because we all have a unique sense of purpose. And if we just do what shows up, we start to neglect the needs for growth. We're being challenged intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, because we're dealing with what's right in front of us. What I'm telling you is if you want to have a sense of fulfillment and purpose in your life, there needs to be a plan and a structure. Well, let me support that argument. If you raise your children without a structure, let them go to bed whenever the heck they want, let them eat whatever the heck they want, let them go to school or not go to school, what happens? Your kids, well, for a while they'll go completely bonkers and then they'll adjust a little. Eventually they'll find a way through, but how much success will they really enjoy in life with that structure? I can tell you, in my own family, there was a generation that experimented with that, and the kids of that generation struggled to find their sense of purpose. You see, intelligence and capacity aren't immediately challenged by what's in front of us. There are many couples who have started out functioning really well, and they assume that their innate competence is going to compensate for the lack of structure, the lack of goals, the lack of direction they have. But we'll figure it out often means living life ad hoc, right? Ad hoc means I'll just do the best that I can with what I have. That's a great philosophy. But if we have a plan for what kind of environment we're going to provide for our children, if we have a plan for what kind of marriage would we like to have and what are we going to put on the line to have it, if we have a plan for how much is our business going to grow in 2026 and how is that going to happen, and if we're willing to step out in that plan and take action, and when the inevitable changes that we didn't expect come up, we adjust. Maybe we adjust the plan, we adjust the milestones, but we keep moving forward, we will get there. It won't be the exact there, because as we meet those challenges and we learn and we grow, it's a creative process. We're creating ourselves in the process, as well as creating the vehicles that we need to hit the goal. The goal moves a little, it changes a little, because our need changes a little as we grow, but we get there. And we go, wow, that was amazing. Having 400 plus podcast episodes, I never saw that coming. That was amazing. So a lot of us, and I've been there, are just kind of, well, I was going to say taking as it comes, but I think a lot of us are feeling so behind the eight ball that we're having trouble putting a plan in place. A lot of us are so busy trying to keep the plate spinning, trying to take care of the kids, trying to take care of the house, trying to get work done, trying to get all that stuff happening, that we don't have time to step out of our lives, our individual lives, our marriage, our work, our business, our shared business, if we're in a family business, step out and work on our lives, work on our marriage, work on our family, work on our work on our family business. Brad and Gwen were just like this. They're problem solvers by nature. They built a life and a business by adapting quickly and pushing through challenges. At first, flexibility worked, but over time, their roles got a little blurry. The needs of the business grew, and they were trying to stop the leaks, and they were stretched, and they started doing each other's jobs, and then they get mad at each other, either for doing each other's jobs or for not covering what they thought the other person should be covering, and that was carrying over to their house. And the kids were watching this and going, what's wrong with mom and dad? Why are they so stressed out? What's going on? Brad felt blindsided by frustration because he didn't see, like he was already stretched. And then one more thing would come that he didn't see coming. And he blamed Gwen for it. Gwen felt like she's carrying the responsibility of the family and the work. Why? Brad's kicking her butt in both places. It wasn't that they were lacking effort. It wasn't that they weren't smart. It wasn't that they weren't capable. It wasn't that they weren't good at the work they were doing. It's that they had either not created a goal or not created a structure for reaching the goal, or both. They had experienced a certain amount of success in their brick and mortar business, and it hit a point where it just became unmanageable. They couldn't manage the employees, they couldn't manage the orders, they couldn't keep all the balls in the air. And as they started dropping balls, it took away from their businesses, and it took away from their business, it took away from their marriage. And as it took away from their marriage, it took away from their family. Well, you see, many people find themselves in this position whether they have their own business or not. And they think the problem is the marriage. We get a lot of couples who come to us, this marriage just doesn't work. Brad and Gwen were like that. This marriage just isn't working. Gwen isn't doing what she should be doing. Brad is asking too much of me. But when they took the time to work on the marriage, when we helped them step back, and we got them to see the same communication breakdowns that were happening at work were happening at home, and that the stresses of work were carrying over to home, and that the needs of the kids not being met the way they wanted them to be met were carrying over to work. They felt guilty going to work. We helped them to see that unstructured partnerships just don't stay flexible. They become fragile. They become rigid. There's something about not having a structure that actually makes the relationship itself rigid. They're stuck in a certain pattern. And life challenges us to grow. Always, and part of the growth is having a vision and a plan, and because God laughs at our plans, or because God guides our steps, or because the universe is unpredictable, we adjust ourselves and the plan to move towards that goal. And when we don't, what happens is we get resentment instead of alignment. You heard how Brad and Gwen were fighting. They were aligned about what they wanted, they just weren't aligned about how to get there because they didn't have a plan. When we have that going on in our lives, we're working on expectations and assumptions instead of understanding and agreements. They were judging each other through the lens of their previous experience when things were more manageable. Expectations and assumptions they formed when their life was simpler. But as it got more complicated, they didn't understand that that more complicated state required more planning, more attention, more stepping back and seeing the big picture. They had power struggles instead of each of them stepping into their unique skills and strengths and leading in the areas of their family, of their marriage, of their work, of their individual lives. They weren't leading in their individual lives because they were back on their heels, back on their heels, back on their heels. They were emotionally reactive instead of being proactive and clear. So again, having a plan, having a structure for how things happen, knowing who is responsible for when. Not that they do everything, but they have ultimate responsibility for it, makes a difference. In a business, if one person is responsible for the operations, the day-to-day functioning, the logistics, and the other person holds the vision and the big picture direction that those things take, and they communicate and work together, it can be a beautiful dance, but they have to have that understanding. And that those two things come out of their strengths. You don't just randomly say, you're big picture and I'm detail. You find out what your strengths are, who's a better fit for that. And every couple I have ever worked with, one person has been stronger in one and the other stronger in the other. Everyone. Because we tend to marry people who have strengths that we don't. Successful people thrive at home and at work, whether they're in business together or working in separate jobs, when their roles are defined. If you are in a job and your role is not defined, you are destined to fail because you are being held to an expectation that isn't clear. And if you don't know what the expectation is, if you don't know what the job description is, if you don't know what your role is, you can't fulfill it. And it blows accountability. How can you be held accountable if nobody's told you what their expectation is? Some people I've worked with are so perfection-oriented that their sense of accountability, their definition of accountability is way beyond their capacity. because it's a capacity they're working towards and they may never get to. Every decision needs to have an owner. Every area of life needs to have a clear leader. Partnerships without these elements eventually collapse under the pressure and weight of failed expectations, failed assumptions, perfectionism, resentment, reactivity, power struggles, fruitless power struggles, destructive conflict that hurts the individuals, hurts the marriage, and destroys the well-being of the children. Well, what did Brad and Gwen do? We first worked on identifying the areas where the most improvisation was happening. Not that improvisation is bad, right? When you have a plan and a structure and something unexpected comes up, improvisation can be okay, but let's remember how improv works. In case you didn't know, those comedians who do improv, they don't just step up and make stuff up on the stage. They have 10, 15 skits that they work out on their own, and then when they get up on stage, they adjust that skit to the situation that they're improvising. They have a plan. The best improv artists have a plan. Do they follow it perfectly? No, because the circumstances are different. But when they see that there's a certain set of circumstances that fits a routine they've already developed, they meld the routine to the situations. That's what Brad and Gwen started doing. They defined who's accountable for what. Who's accountable for making sure that there's diapers? Who's accountable for making sure the garbage goes out? Who's accountable for making sure the roof doesn't leak? Who's accountable for making sure that they have people over for dinner? Who's accountable at work for making sure people get paid? Who's accountable for making sure that projects are clearly defined and that areas of responsibility are clearly defined? Who is accountable for marketing? Who's accountable for new sales? They defined all of those things. And some of the people at work who fulfilled those roles were other people. Some of the people at home who filled those roles were other people. But if Brad was responsible for diapers and somebody else was buying them, Brad was ultimately responsible if that person didn't buy them or not. He held that person accountable. When you delegate to an employee at work, or a cleaning person, or a personal assistant, or a driver, or whoever else, you're responsible for their success. You're responsible to communicate clearly what you want. You're responsible to hold them accountable. And if they drop the ball, you are responsible to figure out, did they drop the ball because I didn't communicate clearly to them? Did they drop the ball because they just aren't competent? Or did they drop the ball because they weren't listening? And there might be other scenarios, but you are responsible for figuring that out because you ultimately have to decide whether you're going to keep them or fire them. Hopefully in a marriage, it's not to keep them or fire them. Hopefully in a marriage, it's about how do I communicate this in a way so that they get it. Because Brad and Gwen learned how to do this. They defined roles, they defined accountability. Each decision had an owner, and their partnership started to thrive. They had clear leadership zones, explicit processes for making decisions when they weren't sure. And they didn't just say, one of them didn't just make a decision randomly, that the other one went, "What? You did that?" No. They had clear decision-making processes. They had regular partnership check-ins at home and at work. And even though each person was empowered to lead in an area, the partner was given veto power. Meaning, if they really thought it was wrong, the decision that the other person was making, they would step up and say, "Hey, you can't do that. You just can't do that. Let's at least hold off. Let me show you the reasons." And the result was relief instead of rigidity. Gwen said, "I stopped feeling like I had to manage everything. They got some help at home." Brad said, "I finally knew what was expected and I could succeed at it because he wasn't doing marketing, sales, and payroll." You see, as relationships grow and develop, eventually the complexities of managing life become such that without goals and structure, you feel frustrated, you feel unfulfilled, you feel alone, you feel like a victim, and you start blaming and resenting the other person. So just to wrap this up into a nice ball, we'll figure it out can work in the earlier stages of life. But in a long-term partnership, eventually you're going to need to figure out in advance what the steps are going to be, because there are going to be missteps. And when the missteps come, you're going to need to have your eyes on the prize. There are 4 prerequisites to change. The first is you got to be willing to let go of something. The first thing you need to let go of is, we'll figure it out. It's all good. Well, just go with the flow. You got to let go of that and make room for, where are we going? What's the strategy for getting there? And that's the second part. The second part is creating a strategy. The third part is acting on it. And the fourth part is adjusting and keeping your eyes on the prize when the unexpected comes up. And very often, having someone in your corner who can help you with that will help you through that. Because let's face it, we don't have all the answers, just like Brad and Gwen found out. Next week, we're going to talk about unspoken expectations and silent contracts. Because guess what? Sometimes even when you have a structure and a plan, expectations and assumptions are still present and not articulated. And we're going to talk about the cost and how to handle that. Hey, if you want to know more about this, or you want some tools to help you with your family, or even with your family business or your business of family, go to richinrelationship.com. richinrelationship.com, and join our free relationship group, The Bridge. You'll find resources there, all kinds of tools to figure out where your relationship is now. And part of having a goal is knowing where you are now. You'll figure out where your relationship is now. You'll be able to set some goals. And if you want some extra help, you have the opportunity to schedule a free consultation with me, Rich Heller. I know this has been helpful because this helps me just to talk about it. Please help us out by subscribing, by liking, by sharing these videos with other people. Help us grow this message of prosperity. True prosperity is about being rich in relationship. Have a fantastic day and an amazing tomorrow. And thank you for listening.